G'day everyone and welcome to the Sydney Property Muppets podcast. My name is Kurt Lawther, the real estate agent, and with me and forever is...
Chris Clarke, the buyer's agent. Now, we did comment about keeping energy high there, and we are going to keep it high, but maybe not this high the whole time.
Maybe not, but yeah, I'm always excited, Chris.
I like it. It always gives me good vibes, good energy.
They talk about being grateful for the things in life, and this is something I genuinely look forward to. I love real estate, love my life, love doing everything, but this is something I love.
You're telling me I've got to be grateful for your high energy, high octane. That's okay. Yep. Look, today's episode, let's crack into things. So we did episode 10, we did a day in the life of an auction seller's edition.
Yep.
Today we're going to do a day in the life of an auction buyer's edition.
Okay, perfect.
So we're going to talk about, sort of break it down. So if you think about an auction, we're talking about just the day of the auction.
Yep.
There's from a buyer, mostly from a buyer's perspective. We'll talk a little bit about a vendor as well.
A little bit.
But definitely more from the buyer. So pre-auction, what are you doing beforehand? You know, how do you get yourself ready? What that all entails. During the auction, so bidding strategies and etiquette, and also just be aware of what's going on. And then we're going to finish up with really talking about post-auction. So when scenarios where potentially not the winning bidder and there hasn't been a winning bidder, we'll talk about it, but what to do in a post-auction negotiation, which I know, Kurt, might surprise you, that is some people's absolute nightmare.
Really?
Yeah. Some buyers, it is their absolute worst thing that they could imagine happening. But let's not get into there now. Let's come back. So pre-auction.
Yes.
So I'd love to hear from you, Kurt, in terms of what a buyer... What's the best practice you believe or you see buyers doing before the auction starts?
All right, so, and Chris will definitely go into things like probably more in-depthly because he's dealing with the buyers. But my thing is make sure whoever's bidding has got their license, registration. Also, whoever's going to go on the contract has their license and registration.
License, you mean like driver's license or passport or something?
Yeah, passport or license.
They don't need a real estate license.
You don't need a real estate license. You come in, generally the open home or the auction will be open like 15, 30 minutes before.
Yep.
You come, register on the day, most people do that, and then just be relaxed, have a coffee, whatever, try and be as relaxed as you can, because I think I got a saying, Chris, that you'd rather know something in 5 minutes than in 20 days or something.
Yep.
Is that this auction could be done and dusted, and as stressful as it can be, it's also an exciting time. You might be the winner to the next property.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
I think
definitely. You want to
trying to be as relaxed as you can. Do you want to expand, add some extra ideas there, Chris?
Yeah, definitely just add to it, I think, because there's a lot going on. So I think, if I think about the faux pas of what not to do, I love when I have other buyers out there coming along and bringing their partner, their mum and dad, their family, because what that allows me to do is allows me to see them speaking, their interaction, their body language. That tells me so much. I'm almost like a natural lip reader, I believe, these days. And I've actually seen other buyers literally mouth the word to each other as a couple, this is our final bid. Now that's really great for me to know on the other side that I know that I'm squeezing and hurting them. I think also, avoid bringing kids along. If you can, find somewhere, grandma, somewhere else, a friend's house for them to be at. Again, all those things provide distractions. And if, in essence, coming into an auction, you want to have your number finalised, your absolute top number finalised. Have it categorically, that is absolutely, no matter what happens in the auction, I'm not going to bid above that.
Well, a bit of my tip on that one as well, because we always have, know your final number is, and I think I've said a couple of times, is have two numbers. So have the ideal number that you want, that you think, do you know what, this is where we're at. However, we are humans. We always want one more Tim Tam. We want one more episode. Then have that category final number that you are not going above, because sometimes you think you might be close enough, but you don't want to show that weakness. So if you've, basically, what are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Completely disagree. But I get the mindset. I'm not saying it's not. People that are listening now or watching, that might really resonate with you. I am much more a big believer just having that one absolute breaking point number. By having two numbers, I think it adds confusion in the day, adds hope that you're going to get your first number. When it doesn't, then you feel a bit frayed because you haven't got it. I think personally, but I get it, and I'm not saying it's wrong. Just for me, I just want to have one clear number that is my absolute walkway point, and anything below that I'm happy. Anything above that, I'm not a part of the process anymore. I'm literally not part of the process.
Well, actually, one thing I want to quickly add on that, Chris and I, when we sat down, this was something, we haven't really had this, but sort of a bit of opposing, not opposing views, but different views, because he's a buyer's agent, I'm a real estate agent, we do work hand in hand. However, sometimes we've got different perspectives, and I think if you're the person that needs that one number, you're out.
Correct.
Definitely use Chris. But if you're also that person that you're going to have a limit at the end of the day, but you're also someone that's a little bit like...
I think the simple thing is, let's not create a combo. I think
Yeah.
the simple thing is, if you like what Kurt said, do that, and if you like what I said, do that. This is not a perfect science.
Yeah. Chris, you know what? Keeping it simple.
Keep it simple, baby. And then the other part is, by not having family members, kids, anyone else there, you're not sharing that number, you're not then rediscussing it, you're not getting your calculator out and re-crunching the numbers.
Re-crunching, what is it, stamp duty?
Stamp duty, because obviously there is complications in New South Wales. You've got solicitor costs, you've got building impacts, you've got the cost of the property itself, there's a mortgage, there's cash depending on how you're doing it, and there is stamp duty. That's why I really believe by having that one number, and agreeing with you, Kurt, having that absolute final number, we might disagree about having two or one, having that final number, calculating all that in there so you absolutely know when you're going to walk away. My other thing would be, don't be late. Okay,
Why is that, Chris?
Well, fun story, I think, anyway. Had a property in Sydney that we were going to auction. And we went along to bid at the auction. We registered. We walked around. There was other people there. There's probably another 8 or 9 groups there. Nobody else registered. The 2 groups they thought that would register, one didn't turn up, and one was there but just said, no, I'm not actually going to register. Now, we end up putting in a very low offer during the auction. We're going to talk about later on about how how that all transpires, because it didn't actually sell at auction. It got passed in, and then we had the first right of refusal. But the interesting thing was, the auction was starting, I believe, at 3 o'clock, which they started at maybe 2 or 3 minutes past 3 o'clock. It was finished by 3:05 in terms of the official auction. Another buyer came in 2 minutes after that, saying, sorry I'm late, I'm here to register. Got the response, auction's done, dusted. Oh, what was the winning price? Well, there was no winning price. Oh, well, then I want to be part of it. No, unfortunately, sir, Chris is effectively in control. I had to actually ask that person to leave the premise because I didn't want them there impacting the vendor's mindset. I wanted them gone because, in my mind, they weren't registered, they're not there. And, shows you, had they been there, I don't know what could have happened in the end. We ended up getting that property, a very long story for another time. But, don't be late. I don't know why you would be when you're buying $1 million property or whatever it is, but anyway, don't be late.
Well, I reckon plan to try and aim 15 to 30 minutes. You've got to register beforehand, so being there then
would make a lot of sense. Look, I know there's traffic, and I think if you called an agent, because you likely have seen it before, I think if you called an agent and said, I'm running late, I've actually been auctioned before, they've walked around and said, so sorry, that another bidder has let us know, they're just running 5 minutes behind, please be patient. As a buyer, even as a buyer, nothing I could push them and go, you meant to start at 3 o'clock technically or whatever. But in the end, they've let me know. Look, one day I might get stuck in traffic myself legitimately, so I'm not going to, really break them down because of that.
Yeah.
Moving, anything else on before the auction starts? Anything else they should be doing or not doing?
I think you've nailed it. Just being by yourself, know your number, and be confident.
I will, little tangent here. You can quite often go to an auction, they've got numbers to pick from. You might have your lucky number and numbers you don't want to pick from. It's always a bit of fun, I think, when you get to an auction to see if your number's there or not and who else is taking it. Obviously in Sydney, the number 8 is quite often taken.
Well, I work in a bit of a predominant Asian market, and there's a couple of lucky and unlucky numbers.
Correct.
That's always a bamboozling one there.
I like the bamboozling, eh? All right, let's move on to during the auction. What are some areas, or for me, I always think the most interesting part for an auction or during the auction, the most interesting statistic is 70% of auctions are won by the first bidder.
Interesting, Chris. Interesting.
So it's a little bit biased because sometimes there is only one bidder, so the first bidder is going to win the property because there is only one bidder. But I also believe it comes back to a bit of a philosophy that I have around bidding, and that is bid hard and bid early.
Well, I was just going to jump in there as well. Often as real estate agents, and some people think we go around and say it's all buyers, so then the price just keeps going up and people just keep bidding. But I will tell buyers, look, if I was a buyer's agent, I'd be telling you the exact same thing. Bid hard, bid early, bid hard, you know your number, and just keep going. Imagine there's a cliff, they don't know where your cliff is, and you're running as fast as you can to that cliff.
Yep.
Obviously, you're not going to go over the cliff. But there's reasons for that, Chris.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different reasons around that. I think the best one I can present is, you talked earlier on about having time, whether you want to say in 5 minutes or 2 hours. I've seen time and time again, when auctions gone a long time, buyers who said they were out, all of a sudden magically come back in. They've recrunched a calculator, they've called their bank, they've called their friends, they've got more emotionally involved in it. Like I said, when I like to go hard. Sometimes with my clients, they've given me a level of budget that I don't believe is good enough to win it. So I don't go hard with those guys. But when I got a client that I know has got a good budget or great budget there, I will go hard and step forth with confidence. And part of that is to kill off the other buyers, kill their emotion off. If they just see every time I throw a number up, Chris or somebody else is bidding something else really fast response, it makes them feel like, oh my God, I don't have time to think. This guy's got a gazillion dollars into it. And I won an auction last year in Annandale where it got to my top, I was authorised to spend 2.23 million. Right? It got to 2.2 million. I was holding that. The other buyer went to 2.1, and I knew my maximum was 2.23, sorry. So I went to that level because I thought there's no point bidding 2.22, because if he bids on 10,000, he's effectively won with my top bid.
Yeah.
That, we talk about this word a bit now, maybe we should keep it in there, bamboozled. The other buyer. Honestly, he was very confused. Even the auctioneer was like, gone up by 20, what a weird precedence, why has he done this, da-da-da. That was the winning number. The night before, I know I'm going on tangent, but my client the night before had only authorised me to spend 2.2 million. And I said, give me a bit more because I don't love round numbers. And she gave me an extra 30, and that was the number that won it. And she had a massive smile on her face.
Great advice, Chris.
So great advice, but yeah, kill them with timing. And I think if you can bid and you know your number, why hesitate? Just go forward with confidence.
Well, I've also, from the selling side of things, you've got a vendor, and sometimes a vendor might have unrealistic expectations of where the property's at, and that's sometimes why we also go to auction, is because on the day, the buyers, the sellers, everyone can see where market value is, what people are prepared to pay, fight over, and sometimes the vendor may be a little bit or a lot higher, but they can actually see where people are on the day. However, if it's not sorted then and there, their expectations still might be a lot higher, and the price may suddenly jump up. Now, it could work the other way, that suddenly the price gets not as, it might not go up, but chances are, if there's extra time involved, the vendors can change their mind, more buyers can come in. A buyer that may have never seen the property finally starts searching that next week.
Yep.
Boom. So that's, my thing, bid hard, bid early, if you want the home.
Yep. I think it's categorically, I think the best way and the only way of going about it. I get it though. Like, I've been bidding for myself, and taking this advice when you're bidding for yourself, it's almost the opposite of every single fibre in your body to go, but I don't want to overspend. If I go hard and spend, bid up in tens or 20s or 50s instead of ones and twos, every $10,000 hurting me. But the rationale is, if you bid strong, bid fives or tens or whatever the number's relevant for your market, whether that's 25s, 50s, 100s, whatever that's going to be, all that's doing is actually killing off your competition, and highly likely meaning you're actually saving money at the end of the day because you're not getting into this. I was in one years ago where I was bidding for a client where they were an earpiece, so they were way out of town and they were in my ear. And they were literally unsure of the number they were going to be topping out. I tried to convince them to have a hard number. They decided not to. Effectively, I was just bidding. I was there bidding for them, but I wasn't really using my strategy. In the end, there was 176 different bids done at the end of that auction. the agent who referred me the buyer, which was my buyer that won, said to me when he referred them to me, Chris, it's unlikely to win. I know where their budget's up to, there's no chance they're going to get to that level. Not knowing that they had some investment come in overnight effectively. And they ended up bidding about $1 million more above the reserve price. But we bid in $1,000 increments over and over and over again. To the point, actually, we end up, my buyer wanted to bid by $500 bids, and the auctioneer actually said no. And this was interesting. So what is effectively, auctioneers can reject your offers or reject bid, because in the end, we're giving money.
Yeah.
But what is your take, Kurt, in terms of auctioneers able to reject good money?
So with legislation, the auctioneer can reject a bid if it's not in the favour of the vendor. That's why, particularly at the start of a campaign, at the start of an auction, the auctioneer will say, look, we've been guiding said number. I want a number around there. And sometimes they might take a little bit lower, but if it's far away from that, they might be like, I'm not accepting it. It's not in the favour of our vendor.
Yeah.
Because another thing is, during the campaign, a lot of people ask, where does the bidding need to start? And my response is always that it doesn't matter where it starts, really. It's where it ends.
Yeah.
We've been guiding here for a reason, because that's where the comparable sales are. That's where we would like to start.
Yeah.
And if people want to go more, it's up to them.
I always love, we didn't talk about this, but I always love when auctioneers have a bottle of champagne for the first bid. And so let's say they're guiding, 1.5, my client's approved it's been 1.7. And I know my first bid's going to be, let's say, 1.45 or whatever the number's going to be. I absolutely jump at bidding first to win that bottle of champagne. I know it's not going to sell 1.45, but I know it's going to kickstart. It's part of my play anyway. I want to go hard and go early, but I win that bottle of champagne, and it never goes to me. It never once has gone to me. Every time it's gone to my client. Even if we haven't won the property, I'm like, well, here's a bottle of champagne for your troubles. Little cheeky there. So we understand. So minimum bidding, you can't bid by dollars. The auctioneer has the right to refuse, and they can determine that what they see fit. I've had times before where they said, look, we're not going up in $1,000 increments. We're currently going in 5,000. The bidding hasn't moved forward. It stayed at that number, and then they've come back and accepted $1,000 bidding. Yep. Quite often it then goes above what a 5,000 leap would have been, but need that coach. Now, the next words that I'm going to utter to you, I want to see your genuine just face reaction. I know on Spotify and podcasts you won't be able to see this, but what are your thoughts when during the auction you hear these 4 words? Is it on the market? No, it's 5 words. Is it on the market yet? It's 6 words. But anyway, what is your response when you hear that? Do you love hearing that from buyers? Does it frustrate you? Do you care? As an agent?
As an agent, I've got 2 schools of thought. If bidding has taken place, I think it's a fair question.
Okay.
So if bidding has taken place,
I didn't know that.
and
Okay.
some people are, and the auction's rolling along, and some people want to know. And I think that's a fair case that if people that have been in the auction, they've been bidding, or even, maybe a buyer's agent, but a buyer's agent's just waiting for it, just asking a genuine question, and it's done nicely. No problems, because people just want to know.
Yeah.
But when an auction hasn't really got underway, no one's making a bid, that's when it's, I don't cock my nose up it, but sometimes it's like, well, we haven't even received a bid yet at our guide, or you're 100 grand below our guide. Like, we need you to also make a bit of a move, and then we can see, so then we can let our vendor know where people are at. Because if no one is bidding, then our vendor's like, well, where is everyone at?
Yeah. So it's quite clear. If no one's bid yet and someone yells out, is it on the market, or it's someone's on a very low bid, I think it's obvious. The interesting part is, I for our listeners, I'm sure a few are there going, I don't want to bid. I talked earlier on about having a phobia, right? And people genuinely have a phobia about negotiating after an auction. It's a nightmare that keeps them up the night before the auction. It's part of the reason why I get engaged to do what I do. And so sometimes people are asking that because they don't want to start bidding until it's on the market, because they don't want to have a scenario where they bid. Sounds crazy, but a bid, it's not the vendors level, they've got the highest bid, and then they've got to go this absolute phobia, daunting task negotiating, which is, like I said, it's the thing that they least want to do.
Yep.
Weird, but true.
So, yes, and some people may, I think we were discussing off air that some people may think, oh, but if everyone's bidding, it's going to get a real high price. Like the price is just going to keep going up, which is also not always true. Sometimes the auction goes quite quick and ends roughly where.
Those are the best ones.
Often we hear about the smallest or the lesser percentage of the stories where it's crazy, but that's what everyone always talks about.
Yeah, grab some media. Like the ones where it goes crazy, or the ones where it was expected, hundreds of people there and then no one bid. Those are always going to make the headlines.
But sometimes it's just people bid and it gets to just maybe a little bit below the guide or a little bit over the guide and then it's done and dusted.
Now, here's one I actually thought of now we haven't spoke about at all.
Okay, this is...
A vendor's bid.
A vendor's bid.
Talk me through this, because obviously auctioneers talk about this every time. There is a one and only vendor's bid I can provide on the vendor's behalf. I think there's a lot of confusion. Does that mean that number then means on the market, not on the market? Why do they do it? When do they do it? Give me some insight from your side, I love
from my side. So the vendor's bid is basically the vendor getting to partake in the auction.
Yep.
And generally it's been used in the past as a way of almost last resort. To be like, just say a property was guiding $1 million and no one's placed a bid or the bids are at 900.
Yep.
They may place a vendor bid 950 just to try and get someone over it, and it might be a bit of a close-up gap to where the vendor then may be like, okay, if someone goes above that, then so it can get done during that auction period.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Sometimes we've tried to use a tactic where we'll use an auction bid at the start, which is a bit risky because then you don't have that vendor.
You can only use it once.
You can only use it once. You don't have that vendor bid as a backup, but I like to sort of go on the front foot to give people a thing to say, we're guiding we've been guiding maybe 900, and just say the vendor wants, I don't know what number, but
let's say they want $1 million.
Just say they want $1 million. We might be like, okay, we're going to use a vendor bid at 900.
Yeah.
Just to be like, guys, you need to be above this. If
so
you want
quite
to buy.
clear doesn't mean it's on the market. In that scenario there, it's not on the market.
No.
It's just, and it's there for what it's there for. It's there to prompt people, it's there to give people a bit of guidance, a bit of push along, a little. I've seen it used in scenarios where, it's expected to sell for, 1.7 and the bidding somewhere near 1.3, 1.4 and everyone's stagnant. It's like used to almost go, everybody here at the day is way off where you need to be. We're putting a vendor bid 1.55, not to scare everyone literally away, but also demonstrate that everyone is a long way away from where the vendor and comparables. And that's, I'm thinking of a scenario in Marrickville where it's happened before.
Yeah. Well, and I think for the buyers and bidders to understand is the guide is a guide based on generally with ethical agents, the genuine surrounding sales and roughly where the property will be.
I'd love that to be always. It is the case in a lot of scenarios,
but yes, there's
also not the case in a lot of scenarios.
Yes. But it's a guide to give where the property could roughly sell with good market value for both the vendor and the buyer.
Yeah.
However, the reason why we go to auction is because people need even though the buyers are fighting against the buyers are also fighting against the vendor still, because then it's like I think people sometimes have got a little bit disillusioned with the property's gone so much over the guide, and sometimes it's generally not the agent's fault. Sometimes it's because people are just fighting over the property, and that's the next door neighbour Sally's like, actually, well, they got $200,000 over where they were guiding and what really the property's worth. I might put my property on the market. Correct. And that's, and that's why you get people,
Well, very good. Well, I think our next topic or next part is talking about auction, post-auction. Like I said, a very daunting proposition for a lot of buyers. We're going to take a pause and then we'll break this into part A, part B. So I hope you've enjoyed this episode. We've definitely enjoyed it so far, and we'll be back with part B shortly.
Perfect.